I want to admit a bias immediately. I don't so much want to talk about heroes. I think the room is full of definitions that we need to chew on. And I think to a certain degree, the challenge that I wrestle with as a father of a 7 and a 4-year-old, as a teacher and a coach and a summer camp counselor, as a husband of a middle school principal, and more recently as a member of a global school design team, is that when we focus on the potential of the individual, we may in fact lose the capacity to do what we must do together. So I'm going to temporarily not take the path of the hero, but I want to imagine how we collectively can design for the capacity of the act regardless of the definition. So in essence, can we treat the idea of our collective opportunities as a design problem? Can we treat the ability to step forward into an invitation that may be challenging as a design question? For my team and I, we're deeply interested in, to be blunt, we're geeks. We geek out over this stuff. We're interested in what the future of teaching and learning looks like, and to a degree, a space like this is much of what we do professionally. We're called to design the spaces by which we'll gather together. And it's humbling, it's complex, but ultimately the building isn't the point. The building is an invitation. So I want to walk through a series of questions. This is not about expertise. I'm on a wicked smart team, and I'm very lucky to be at that table. I don't have answers. We have a lot of questions that we are madly curious about. When a charter school in the south side of Chicago, free and reduced about 90%, which is short for poverty, kiddos who do not assume they will go to college. And we were invited to imagine their next school. They're currently in a factory that's been turned into classrooms for kindergartners and third graders alike. And they started to imagine, we want the school we always dreamed of so that we can go to college, and grade point average was important, test scores were important, being warm, safe, and dry was important. But these children and teachers said, but it's not enough for us to get the school that we need so that we can go do. Instead, how do we give back to the city of Chicago? Poor, public, south side of Chicago. How do we as little kiddos and teachers and parents give back to the city and make the city of Chicago healthier? So when they challenged us as a design team to support them, it wasn't about the building was a Trojan horse. It was a prompt. The invitation was, can we reclaim acres of industrial wasteland that the city has let lay fallow? Can we go off the grid and put more energy back into the grid? Can we as first graders not only go to college one day, but more importantly, can we change the world we live in immediately? As a design question, it becomes provocative. Can we create a school that lives up to that invitation? But again, it's not about the building itself. The team that I was fortunate enough to be invited to join a couple of years ago, which is a 70-year-old architecture and engineering practice around the world, 1,200 people, doing extraordinary work. And yet on the website, when I was invited, it didn't say architecture. It didn't say engineering. In fact, what it did, just like Joseph Campbell invited the world to imagine the hero's journey, just like everyone today is wrestling with the journey we're on, the one collectively we want to follow, it was an invitation. Are we bold enough to ask bigger questions? So in essence, when we go out with clients, we imagine that it's not about the project, the building, the campus, all incredibly important. But instead, are we bold enough together to go on an epic expedition that will make an impact in the world right now? And can we allow the building, or the curriculum, or the fundraising, whatever we do creatively, intellectually as people in this room, can we allow that to be the excuse to go on a bolder invitation? Ernest Shackleton, who was bold enough more than a century ago to imagine going to the South Pole, something that seems like it's an eco-tourist act now. It's something we do when we're blessed with opportunity, or North Face, and we want to go somewhere and Instagram our way back. But there was a point in time where the very idea of touching the South Pole was inconceivable. When the ad went out in a London newspaper that invited people to essentially certain death on the way to something bold. Honor in case of. 5,000 people signed up for this, including a significant number of women who were not even considered to be in the pool, for absolute uncertainty as long as I can go on the mission. And I think there's something interesting about that. Whatever we do professionally, personally, in terms of our faith, the things that draw us out in the world, are we bold enough not to be heroic? And I don't mean to challenge anybody here, because I want to chew on everything we're hearing about today. And I want my 4-year-old and my 7-year-old to be extraordinary in micro-heroic moments as well. But what's interesting about heroes is rarely are they worth following alone. And rarely, when they're alone, can they do what they're capable of. What's problematic about the hero myth in the modern, the superhero myth, is that they show up when everything falls apart. We need heroes. If we're going to band together, we need heroes to dream extraordinary love stories. How do we create epic expeditions, invitations to fall in love with the possibility together? I don't know. In Turkey, when we were invited to go to Turkey and design a prototype school for the entire country, it was humbling. We can't get it wrong. Project-based learning, multidisciplinary, emerging technology, sustainable building forms, all in fair play, until you realize the design challenge isn't the building. Because a 12-year-old girl in modern-day Turkey or developing Turkey must make a really interesting, heroic decision of her own. Do I follow the path of academia, or do I follow the path of faith? Because in modern Turkey, and this is not just about Turkey, this is about all of our communities, you cannot wear your religious identity in a public building, which means as a 12-year-old girl, if in fact you're a devout Muslim, you cannot go to a public school and therefore advance your possibilities. The great design challenge is not this building, as extraordinary as that private invitation was to us. It's, are we brave enough to create the capacity for these young girls to never have to make that decision again? And in essence, what we're designing as designers, but collectively, is a mindset for the future. We talk a lot about responsibility. I think many of our definitions of heroism are, I'm responsible enough to step forward and sacrifice, and then story end. The new world doesn't say to a young person, if you're responsible, it's all guaranteed. Flint and most of our communities have been wrestling with a version of that. I was responsible for a generation, for 3. Now what? The world that our young people, and therefore we all have to be good at, is, do we have the ability to respond? Do we have the mindset that says, I'm willing in moments of ambiguity to step into the uncertainty together because it's worth it? And in essence, when we go forward, if there's one part of the design process that we are beginning to learn is true, and this is a tricky one in this day and age, where we have all, because of Target, taught us that a teapot could be sexy. And an iPhone can be even more beautiful than anything we ever imagined. And the clothing I wear can suggest identity. And everything is open for design. But still, if we listen to that story, it's about objects. It's about nouns. It's about things. It's about stuff outside of us. What's been very interesting in the last couple of years in the design realm isn't that we're getting better at designing objects, cars, clothing, user interface, whatever that means. Right now, we have a rising tide of people beginning to realize, or simply recognizing what's always been true. If we're smart enough to solve the problem, we may be our own worst enemy. If, however, the design process, or even the heroic journey, and to a degree, the heroic journey always started with a knock on the door. It always started with hearing the invitation. And in essence, as a designer, designers, if you would, if we don't lead with empathy, if we don't lead with the ability to go, I know, but I haven't heard you yet, we end up designing remarkable solutions. We're right, and we debate definitions of heroism, or whatever our industry calls us to talk about. What we're interested in essence, I'm going to fly through these because, well, adorable babies, by the way, take a moment. What we are interested in a design sense about not only the world of learning and teaching, the world of gathering, the world of being curious, the world of allowing our communities and families to thrive, is, are we willing in essence, to join remarkable teams who are in love with the possibilities, but do so with an enormous willingness to simply say, I know, but tell me your version first. Thank you very much.